Hello, this is Gabriel, China Fox News correspondent, Gail Chord Schuler, and I'm starting to have less reports right now because we had something major that happened about on August the 25th. So I'm just go ahead and read you my August 25th, I gotta change it in here. 2016 brain-to-brain interview with Brent about the total destruction of the Jesuit and UFO space fleet in deep space. And here's what I told Brent. Looks like we've had a major military victory with the Jesuit order due to my Gail shield, and their entire space fleet is gone and all their military and soldiers destroyed, which may explain why God sent the Rome earthquake with, I hear, like 1,000 aftershocks. But the Roman Catholic Church is creating a new Jesuit order to replace the old one. Until all this falls into place, I'll stop reporting news until I can be sure I'm reporting accurately. I will get back to work on my book, Jesuit Empire's Secret History. Looks like the next phase in our battle against the Jesuit order will be political. My news site is still up, but Brent and I are waiting to see how the Catholic Church will respond to the destruction of the entire Jesuit military arsenal, which happened, I believe it was August the 24th. All the current Jesuits died as the Gail shield caused their super Nukaki that they sent to the Earth to ricochet back to the Jesuit order in deep space and destroyed their entire fleet. From what I understand, it also destroyed the UFO's space fleet as well. And the only Jesuit alive from this battle is Zach Knight, who cannot be killed because he's the Antichrist, and he's floating inside this ocean in deep space, which got so filled with Jesuit seamen from the ricochet that it drowned the entire Jesuit space fleet and destroyed all the UFO space fleet. Zach Knight and the UFO fallen angels, those are Satan's fallen angels, are all floating inside the now Jesuit seamen ocean in deep space inside bubbles. All the other Jesuits out in deep space died. That's what I heard from Brain to Brain Communications. Zach Knight and the UFO aliens or fallen angels are alive, but they are each trapped inside a bubble and cannot escape from their bubble inside the seaman ocean. In the Bible, in Genesis 1, it talks about waters above the waters. There are waters, there's an ocean in deep space, and it's Satan's ocean. In the book of Job, it talks about Leviathan swimming in that ocean. And that's the waters above the firmament in Genesis chapter 1. That's Satan's deep ocean. So somewhere out there in deep space, before you get to the third heaven where God the Father's throne is, there's a huge ocean in space. And Satan swims in there a lot. And he actually had the Jesuit space fleet in that ocean to protect them from the Gail shield. But the Jesuits, in an attempt to destroy me and my Gail shield, kept sending super Nukakis. They sent one first to Central Florida, and we had to evacuate Central Florida. And this super Nukaki was designed to be attracted to human DNA. So when it came to Earth and there was no human DNA, the Gail shield caused it to ricochet back into deep space. And that time, the Jesuit space fleet was able to escape to another part of the ocean and avoid the ricochet. And then they tried another one over all of Florida. And at this point, my men realized that by putting a shield around every human being that had my Catherine the Great, King David genetic profile, that it would cause the Gail shield would be able to ricochet the Nukaki back to the Jesuits, to the origination point. So that failed. So then the Jesuits were racing against time because they knew that we were putting this shield around every human being with my genetic profile in it. And they launched, we were able to get a shield around everybody that had my genetic profile. But nevertheless, the Jesuits were desperate and they tried to, this time, to annihilate every human being on Earth. And they figured since all the Jesuits were in that space fleet, and yeah, I guess they were even willing to kill their own Roman Catholic people to do this. And Jesuits are famous for this. They're the biggest murderers on the planet. So they tried to do that, but because my men were able to put this shield around everybody that had my genetic profile, the super Nukkake, and I hear they captured this on satellite camera, and they're reporting it on the Gabriel Fox News Channel and showing the footage. It was a huge Nukkake. It came down to Earth, and because it was so huge, and because every human being had my genetic profile around them, it ricocheted back into the wormhole that launched it back to deep space, and it wiped out the entire UFO. The Jesuits started collaborating with the UFOs to try to defeat my Gale shield. It then wiped out all the UFO space fleet, and it wiped out the Jesuit space fleet, and I believe killed every Jesuit out there except for Zach Knight. Okay, so that's kind of like, and if you go to my news site, I have links that go into more detail about that. I also have a link, this is kind of getting off the subject, but as you know, in the mainstream media, we've got a big very contentious presidential election between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And the main argument that Hillary's been using against Donald, she's calling him a racist. And Donald is, and she says, why don't you show your tax returns, Donald? I actually had an interview with Donald explaining why he has not been revealing his tax returns. And it's because the Jesuits actually infiltrated his business and caused him to go into debt. And they also switched out, you have to go see the interview. They switched out his legitimate tax return with a Jesuit version, and they used Jesuit clones inside his business to try to bring him down. And I have a link at my news site about that. So let's get back to this ricochet. So all the other Jesuits out in deep space died from their attempt to annihilate planet Earth with this super Nukkake. Zach Knight and the UFO aliens or fallen angels are alive, but they are each trapped inside a bubble, and they cannot escape from their bubble inside the semen ocean. Satan is furious, and it appears he's working with the Catholic Church to create a new Jesuit order, though they are not able to create a military due to my Gale shield. I also hear that every time somebody becomes a Jesuit, they operate now like a suicide bomber mentality, because my Gale shield kills Jesuits. So they can't stay alive more than 24 hours once they decide to become a Jesuit. And so their goal basically is to just, they're being martyrs for the Catholic Church and for the Jesuit order. That's what they're doing, and they are causing some problems. Not sure how my Gale shield's going to respond. I already told you a little bit how it's responding. It's still killing off Jesuits, and they no longer have the benefit of being able to escape into outer space because they no longer have their space fleet. And I also mentioned I'm not sure how it's going to affect the current election for U.S. presidency yet. So I may not report any major news until this all settles out and we see what direction the Catholic Church is going to go with the Jesuit order. The Vatican is currently recruiting new Jesuits for a new Jesuit order, and I already told you they're dying off and basically operating like kamikaze pilots, like they realize that once they become a Jesuit, my Gale shield's going to knock them out within 24 hours. But the Catholic Church is saying they're going to get brownie points with God for dying for the Catholic Church to honor the Jesuits who died in deep space. The Vatican is currently recruiting new Jesuits for new Jesuit order, which means we have not defeated the Jesuits yet. The Roman Catholic Church seems unfazed by God's expression of outrage over their attempt to annihilate the entire earth in order to ensure their survival and victory, and are recruiting Roman Catholics to form a new Jesuit order. Basically, they're all suicide bombers type. They have that kind of mentality. I'm not sure if they will be able to use cloning technology because that was part of their military arsenal. And Brent told me this is correct, Gail. We've also received a huge technology dump from the Gale shield, which is giving us all the technology they had in their arsenal, and it's quite a lot to decipher. UFO technology is very complicated, and our nanotechnology research team is on this. So at first, Brent told me that we had defeated the Jesuit order, but the Vatican response on Earth has been outrage, and that's typical. God sent an earthquake called the Ash Wednesday earthquake in 2001. I have articles about that at the Gabriel at my site. And the 1994 Northridge earthquake, when they used a Jesuit lawyer to impersonate Brent Spiner and accused me of harassment against Brent Spiner when I used my Jesuit husband to write a nasty letter to Paramount. And then that gave them an excuse to accuse me of harassment. At that time, I was writing Brent almost every day because, you know, he made love to me on the phone and he talked to me on the phone, and I was married. And anyways, God, I just, when I got that letter from the Jesuit attorney accusing me and my husband of harassment and not forbidding us to communicate at all with Paramount Studios in 1994, God, and I went to God and I prayed for 3 hours and asked Jesus to forgive me for disgracing his name by having an adulterous long distance relationship with Brent Spiner, who I said apparently led me on. And you know, at that time I was very upset. I got this from Paramount. You know, I didn't realize that the Jesuits were behind it. I just was disappointed that it happened. And I said, God, I won't send any more letters to Paramount. I've so disgraced your name. I claim to be your child. And I've been having an adulterous relationship with this man, and I won't write him anymore. And actually, I never did send any more letters after I got that harassment notice because Jesus told me not to. But then he sent the Northridge earthquake. You got to go to my my overview site, gabrielchannel.com/overview.html. It's all there. I also have stuff about this at the news site. So I've got, there's a lot for people to digest at my news site. So anyways, Brent was saying that UFO technology is very complicated. Our nanotechnology research team is on this. And, but you know, if those Jesuits did not die, who launched that super Nukaki onto Earth, the entire Earth would have been annihilated. So it looks like the next phase of our battle with the Jesuits will be political. And Brent said, keep writing your book, Gail. People need to know the history of this evil Jesuit order. So that's basically a rundown of the past week. I've been working on my news site. I actually started working on my book where I'm kind of, this is very bad translation from the French, but people need to know what's in here. He's got all sorts of documentation, footnotes, source. He tells all his sources. They've got a really evil history. The Jesuit order is not a benign charitable organization like they make themselves out to be. They are the military of the Roman Catholic Church. Their goal is to take over the world for Roman Catholicism, and they will stop at nothing to do this. And he goes into this. He talks about the founder, Ignatius de Loyola. It's a very bad translation. So what I'm doing is translating it into modern day English and using my writing skills, eliminating a lot of the passive tense, making it active tense. Also explaining how much of what they do in the past they're doing today, except using modern technology. So I'm going to be working on that book. I originally planned to have it out in September, but then when I started my news site, I got very busy as a news correspondent and I haven't had time, but I just started working on it again, and maybe it'll be out in October. I'd like to get it out before the election, simply because Hillary Clinton has a Jesuit for a vice president. Now you would say, well, the Gail Shield, from what I understand, they've made like 1,000 automatons of Tim Kaine because he can't stay alive. And they just, every time he gets killed, when he goes out on the stump, they just replace him with the next automaton, and they just keep making automatons. So eventually my Gail Shield's going to catch up with all of this, and I'm not sure what's going to happen, but this is what's going on right now. So I've been very busy working as a correspondent, a writer, and when I finish my book, Jesuit Empire Secret History, then I'm going to make an audiobook out of it. And I do have the audiobook about Abraham Lincoln and how the Jesuits murdered him out. So this is all important history, which has been covered up. And the truth needs to get out. The most reliable news source out there is the Gabriel Chana Fox News Channel, 0 on cable. And the most reliable mainstream news source is usually the Fox News Channel. But the Jesuits have infiltrated all of the mainstream news. So the only reliable news source is Gabriel Chana Fox News. Everything else is Jesuit controlled, and it's just one big propaganda machine like Hitler's Germany, just putting out a bunch of lying propaganda to support the Jesuit cause.